Some men speak through silence louder than others do through shouts. In a small-town diner that never changed much over the years, Gregory Drexler had become something like wallpaper. He was there every Saturday morning, never late, never early, always alone. No one remembered when he started coming. He just always had. He'd take booth 3 by the window, the one where the sunlight hit around 9:15 a.m., just after the breakfast rush died down. He never ordered food, just a black coffee, refilled twice. His left hand always curled around the mug like it held the past together. Mel's Diner had once been a place where local farmers, repairmen, and teachers swapped weekend stories over eggs and sausage. Now it was more about Instagram filters and Bluetooth earbuds. The chatter had shifted. The warmth of community faded under sarcasm and screen glow. Gregory sat with his spine straight, as if the chair was still a barracks bench, as if he was still under inspection. The creases in his khaki jacket were intentional. The army pin on his cap was polished, even if the cap itself had frayed over the years. He wasn't trying to make a statement. That's just how soldiers sat. That's how Gregory Drexler existed. But the town had stopped seeing him as a soldier a long time ago. "You don't get it," muttered Connor Wells, a wiry 20-something with wireless earbuds and a sharp jaw that hadn't ever taken a punch. "Why does he even come here if he's not going to talk to anyone or order anything but coffee?" Across from him, his friend Derek snorted. "Because no one's told him he's obsolete yet." They weren't whispering. They didn't need to. Gregory wasn't deaf, but they assumed he was. Or maybe they didn't care. Mandy, the waitress on shift, was only in her 2nd month. She wore her apron too tight and her smile too loose. She hadn't yet learned the rhythm of the place, but she did learn that Table 3 was the quiet old vet. That's what the other waitresses called him. Some with a shrug, some with rolled eyes. Most just tried to keep it short when serving him. He never complained. He never smiled either. This Saturday, though, something was different. Or maybe the difference had always been there, waiting for someone to notice. Gregory sat a bit stiffer than usual. His knuckles had bruises, not fresh, not fading, the kind you earn from punching a wall instead of a man. His face was the same map of sun and time, but his eyes scanned the room. It wasn't paranoia, it was training. When you've spent half your life in war zones, you don't just stop scanning for threat levels. Connor whispered something else to Derek and then laughed out loud. "Hey, Gramps," he called, tapping his coffee cup like a cowbell. "They run out of retirement homes today?" The couple chuckled. Gregory didn't look up. The kid kept pushing. "You waiting on the ghost of Eisenhower or just hoping someone pays for your pancake dreams?" Mandy glanced over from the kitchen pass, her face twisted in a conflict between manager warnings and basic decency. She didn't say anything, but someone else noticed. A man by the name of Kyle Madsen, mid-40s, HVAC repairman, recently divorced, sat alone at the bar. He watched it unfold in silence, stirring his coffee slower than necessary. He'd seen Drexler in that same booth nearly every week since his own kid was in middle school. Never spoke to him, but he remembered the funeral last spring. Someone had mentioned Gregory's wife passed. Kyle's ex-mother-in-law had said something about it over pie. Connor laughed again and flicked a spoon across his table so it clattered loudly, drawing attention. Gregory didn't flinch, but he did finally look up. Just for a second. Just enough for Kyle to see something pass through the old man's eyes like a shot. Not fear, not sadness. Something else. The real war, not Call of Duty, and it made Kyle put down his mug. "Hey," Kyle said quietly, standing up. Connor looked his way, amused. "You want his autograph or something, Kyle?" "No," he said, "but I figure someone should remind you that respect doesn't require a crowd." Connor blinked. "The hell does that mean?" "It means he's forgotten more about sacrifice than you'll ever pretend to know." Gregory looked back down. It wasn't gratitude. It wasn't shame. It was restraint. The diner stilled for a second. Not a dramatic silence, just one of those pauses where even the clatter of dishes feels too loud. Then the buzz returned. Connor smirked and went back to his phone. Giles sat back down. And Gregory, he just took another sip of coffee? He didn't nod, he didn't have to. Because the silence he wore wasn't weakness, it was armor. And somewhere, deep inside that silence, something was beginning to shift. A weight he'd carried alone for too long had moved, if only slightly, and outside a shadow crossed the window. A soldier in uniform, walking with purpose, toward the diner. The moment Ryan Drexler stepped through the door of Mel's diner, there wasn't a single dramatic pause or musical sting. No one gasped, no one dropped a fork. The world in its usual small-town rhythm just kept chewing and chatting. But Gregory noticed. He didn't lift his head, not right away. But the shift in posture was instant. Spine straighter, chin lifted slightly, left hand relaxing just enough to let the coffee mug settle onto the saucer without sound. Ryan stood just inside the entrance, letting his eyes scan the room, not with aggression but awareness. He wasn't dressed for attention, even if the Army combat uniform couldn't help but draw it. He wasn't showy. Just present, confident, grounded. Like his father, he saw Gregory right away, of course, third booth from the window, always. Ryan's boots moved quietly on the tile floor, though every step felt heavier than it sounded. He passed Connor and Derek's table, didn't look at them, didn't have to. But the subtle hush that followed in his wake told him everything he needed to know. Tone of the room, observed, slightly defensive, trying to act casual. Classic. He reached the booth and stood still. Gregory finally looked up. No words, just that silent exchange that only people who've bled the same blood can hold. The kind where years compress into moments, and one glance says more than a letter ever could. "Hey, Dad," Ryan said softly. Gregory gave the faintest nod. Not cold, not formal, just earned. "You sittin' or just passin' through?" Gregory's voice was gravel with edges smoothed by habit. He gestured with 2 fingers at the other side of the booth. "I'm sitting," Ryan said. He slid into the booth across from him. The old vinyl seat gave a creak, a small detail, but enough to shift the gravity in the room. The old man wasn't alone anymore. Mandy came over, her smile realer this time. She didn't ask Ryan what he wanted, just placed a menu in front of him like it was ceremonial, even though she knew no one ever looked at them. She walked off without a word, but the look she gave Connor as she passed him made his smirk twitch slightly. "You all right?" Ryan asked his father. Gregory took a sip of coffee before answering. "I am always all right." Ryan gave a short chuckle. "Same thing you said after we ran that jungle course in Georgia and you busted your ankle halfway through." Estill finished. "You limped over the line and then threw up in front of the whole platoon." Gregory gave the ghost of a smile. "Respect is earned." "It was," Ryan nodded. "Still is." They sat in silence for a beat. The quiet between them wasn't empty, it was full. With history, with understanding, with everything neither of them ever said out loud, but both carried. Connor leaned toward Derek again, whispering something, this time quieter. The earlier arrogance had softened, diluted by uncertainty. Gregory heard it. Not the words, the energy. "What's the situation?" he asked, his voice low. Ryan didn't need clarification. He glanced slightly over his shoulder. "Typical noise," he replied. "Kids with soft hands and louder mouths." Gregory exhaled slowly, a small nod. "They know what they're doing?" "They think they do." "And do they know who they're doing it to?" Ryan looked his father in the eye. "They don't." Mandy came by again, setting down a fresh cup of coffee in front of Ryan. She looked at Gregory, hesitated, then said, I didn't realize your son was home." Gregory didn't look up. "Few do." Ryan gave her a kind smile. "Thank you." She blushed a little and walked off quickly, the coffee pot swinging in her hand like a peace offering. Derek elbowed Connor slightly. "Dude, that's his kid." So, Connor looked over again, now with a different kind of interest. He was studying Ryan like he didn't know what box to put him in. Soldier? Cop? Something else? Gregory took another slow sip, then said, "Why'd you come here?" Ryan shrugged. "Had a few hours between base and the ceremony. Figured I'd sit, where I know the coffee hasn't changed." Gregory chuckled. "It hasn't." Ryan leaned in slightly. "You shouldn't let them talk to you like that. They don't know they're talking to me. You're too calm." "I'm not calm," Gregory said. "I'm patient." Ryan sat back, processing, then nodded. Across the diner, an older couple who hadn't spoken to Gregory in over a year gave him a small wave. He didn't return it, but his presence seemed heavier now. Seen, solid. The ripple had begun. Kyle Manson caught Ryan's eye and lifted his cup in a quiet toast. Ryan returned the gesture. And for the first time in that diner, in years, Gregory Drexler looked like someone people didn't just see, but someone they recognized. Not as a relic, not as wallpaper, but as someone whose story wasn't finished, someone whose son had just stepped into the room, someone who might finally be heard. Outside, the morning sun caught the edge of the window just right, and the army insignia on Ryan's chest reflected a soft glint across the floor. And now even Connor noticed. He didn't say anything, but he looked down at his coffee like it had suddenly lost its flavor, because something had changed. And the old man at table 3 wasn't just there anymore. He was someone again, and someone was watching.